Hello and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile, and this is a show where we get to talk about business, we get to talk about sports, and we get to talk about everything in between. Wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, you know what you're supposed to do. Like, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, 5-star review. You know what you're supposed to do at this point. You've probably been on those platforms for a while. So whatever you're going to do, we would appreciate it. Today, my incredible guest, Greden Camacho, at I'm OfficialChiKa across social media, multimedia, personality, host, and digital creator. Let me throw my pinky up while I say that. Greden, how you doing today?
I'm good, Michael. How are you? I might have to hire you to be my spokesperson.
Yeah, I mean,
So
hey,
good.
I love talking into a microphone. I love being on camera. It doesn't really get too much better than this, Greg. And I'm very excited to get to talk to you about the brand building, esports, streaming, content creation, working with brands, right? Brand ambassadorship, being an instructor, being a host. You do so many different things.
Yes.
But the first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
I feel for me personally, I've done sports all of my life, whether that was traditional sports or gaming, but I didn't start taking gaming seriously until later on when I realized that it was what I've always wanted to do. I just never really saw that there was an opportunity for it. But for me, the reason why I love sports so much is because I can be unapologetically me. And it's entertaining, right? And you're able to touch so many lives and so many backgrounds and lives all at once. And so that's my main take as to why I love sports.
I love that. So where does that come from? Is that a cultural thing? Is that something you grew up with? I mean, we're gonna get into your story a little bit, but I'm kind of
Okay.
curious, like, what is it about you that you've always liked to help other people?
Um, I think it was always instilled in me as like growing up, like my parents always said, treat others the way you want to be treated, always do good in this world and help others. And my dad, I spoke about this recently with some colleagues, but my dad is in the military. And so him being in the military and coming back home whenever he had the opportunity, we always played video games, worked on cars, we always watched sports. It was kind of like our way of bonding. And I really have to thank him for opening up those doors to me and letting me realize that it's not just a guy's sport. It's not just a guy's game. And so that's a main, my parents are a big influence as to who I am now and also my background and what like has shaped me and my brand actually.
I love that. I love it. So obviously, talking about video games, I mean, asking what your favorite video game in the world is like kind of a weird, boring question, right? What's that first one that you actually beat all the way through, finished it, you kind of stood up, you were so excited. For me, just to give you a little context, was Donkey Kong 1
Donkey
on the
Kong.
Super Nintendo. That was the first game I ever beat. It was incredible. I remember it like yesterday. What is the first game that you ever fully beat all the way through?
I listen, there's so many that come to mind, but I will say one of my biggest flex, but I used to play a lot of RuneScape and World of Warcraft accounts.
Whoa, okay. Yeah,
But
there
I
you
used
go.
to actually build them up and sell them to people when I was younger. As like
Awesome.
my little side hustle. My parents recently just found out about this and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "Yeah, so you know how kids sold chocolate bars and popcorn? I was selling World of Warcraft accounts." And so
That's
for me, my
incredible.
biggest flex is having like a lot of like my master prestige stuff, like the capes and like the rare party hats and all of that in RuneScape and also like in World of Warcraft.
Good for you. That is a freaking hustle, man. I love that. I mean, I gotta ask, and you don't have to tell us, but what does a World of Warcraft account go for? Like, how much
It
money does
I mean,
somebody actually pay you?
that obviously fluctuates now, but
Yes.
I mean, before I was
Wait,
like,
are you still doing this?
no, 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 no.
Oh my gosh, I was gonna say, good for
No,
you,
no, no, I
dude.
don't
You
have the
have just
time.
kept it
I don't have
going.
the time. No, so, like, when I was younger, like, even just seeing, like or obviously, as an adult, I'm like, "Okay, that obviously wasn't a lot of money," but it would be, like, several $100s, you know? Some of these kids wouldn't have the time to level them up, and it's all about, the flex, right, and the grind and who bragging rights, and so, like, I noticed that very quickly, and so I was like, "Well, I have time and I play video games all the time after after school or whenever I get the chance, so why not make something out of it?"
That is brilliant. See, you were an entrepreneur from the beginning. You just didn't even
And
know. I
I
think
just
that
didn't
is
even know it.
absolutely fantastic. Good for you, Greg. So, your story is an interesting one. When you and I spoke, shout out to Alex Sinatra who put us in contact. Go
Yes.
listen to Alex's
Alex
episode
is
if you're
great.
listening. She was amazing. She was amazing on the show. I'm sure she's even more amazing in real life. I just unfortunately haven't had the chance to shake her hand yet. But she said, I have a really cool friend, and I think you should talk to her because I think her story would resonate well with your audience. And I said, awesome. That sounds great. She says she's in esports and gaming and all this stuff. I said, that's even better. But then I spoke to you and found out a little bit more about your backstory, which is very unique. to say the least, right? So
Very non-traditional path.
you at what, like 24, 25, you were working in a doctor's office,
Mm.
preparing to become a doctor, MD, right? Not PhD, not like you just went to college forever. You were working to become an MD and decided, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to stream video games on the internet." When you say it like that, I'm sorry. I
No, that's
apologize.
exactly how I said it to my parents, and that's why I'm laughing.
Oh no,
Because
goodness.
every time I talk about this, I just think about my parents' reaction when I came to them with this little notepad that I had, like a little sparkly notepad that I had, and I wrote down what made me happy, and I just looked at them and I was like, "Hey guys, I don't wanna be a doctor anymore." And just
Ugh.
the look on their face, they're like, "Huh?" Because, it was always instilled, like, as the oldest daughter, you're supposed to go get the college degree and have a better life than we had, and we provided these opportunities. Go to college, get your, master's, your doctorate, become a lawyer,
Doctor, lawyer,
fancy,
business executive, right?
you
Those
know
are
what
the
I mean?
3, yeah.
So, but luckily my parents are super supportive. They're my biggest fans. Like I mentioned in every podcast or interview that I talk about, my parents are known as Mama and Papa ChiKa, so my audience knows them. They say hi to them. They're actually more excited to see them on the chat more than
Love it.
they are me, I feel like. But it was definitely one of those things where I had like a midlife crisis in my 20s. I'm 27
We
now.
call that a quarter life crisis, if I'm
Quarter
not
life
mistaken. I had
crisis.
one of those too, so you're doing great. Don't worry. We're all on that
Yeah, and I
we're on
feel
that.
like I don't know, we put so much pressure on kids and growing up to, like you need to know what you wanna do and all of that, that people don't have the time to really sit back and kind of figure out who they are. And there's still parts of me that I'm still figuring out, like who I am and what I really want out of life. And I'm 27, and then we're imposing and putting all this pressure on the young kids, like you need to go to school for this, you need to follow this specific track. And I'm here to tell people like that's not even the case, right? Maybe college isn't for you. And I'm not saying don't go to college. Like I'm not like a hard like don't go to college.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't stop growing and learning and trying different avenues and expanding into things that you think might be of interest or that you might have a passion. Maybe you can convert that passion into business, right? And so that's kind of where I was like, you know what? Not happy about what I'm doing. More specifically, I don't know, like, it wasn't tickling my creative side, and that's what really made me sit down with my notepad and write everything that made me happy, whether it was in front of the camera, modeling, acting, recording my gameplay, and sharing it with my friends. I've always been a gamer, but I never really knew specifically what I could do with it, and once I actually delved into it and I did my research and I looked at what was missing in the industry, that's when I decided to create Official ChiKa Gaming, and I literally started from scratch, and a year now, like, you've seen my media kit, a year now, I've been able to work with amazing brands and hopefully, continue forth on that path to continue making that change.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. And I completely agree with you, right? Like the older I get, and I turned 30 in November, so a little over a month. And it's actually not nearly as scary as it was like even like 5, 6 years ago. Now it's like
Yeah.
whatever. It's not a big deal. Nothing really changes. I promise you that. You actually just kind of get more wise, right? Like I realize that there is much less that I know. And the more I seek out the information, the happier I become, right? Because it's one of those
Yeah.
things that it's so silly to me. I even at 18, I was like, well, so I'm supposed to figure out what I want to do for the rest of my life. And like,
It's
I'm not even allowed to
scary.
buy like alcohol yet. Like, what
Yeah,
are we
that's so
doing here?
scary,
Like,
and then for me, I graduated high school when I was 17 and graduated with my bachelor's at 20, both my bachelor's at 20, so it's like, yo, at 20, I couldn't even buy alcohol or
right.
celebrate my graduation, like other people were celebrating, so it's one of those things, and I jumped right into neuroscience and neurophysiology and trying to figure out like, okay, I love this, but what do I do with it? And then jumping right into my master's and then my AUD, and it was just too much, and I didn't really have the time to sit down and go, okay, what is it that you really want? And what is it that you really like? And what can you do about it? Because for me, I was always school, 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 and work, work simultaneously, sometimes holding multiple jobs and going to school while I was in grad school. I didn't want to get stuck with a lot of debt, or I didn't want to put so much pressure on my parents. Luckily I had scholarships and things like that. But majority of the time, some of these kids that, are generally going to school and working multiple jobs, and they don't really have a time to sit down, relax, and just kind of think about what they really want. Because then they're also doing their social things. College is very social. You want to be involved and feel included, and it's a journey of you finding out like who you really are. So that's basically, if you hear anything from this podcast, it's the one thing I want to tell you is, don't, if you're young, don't feel like you have to know and have every single answer right now. Because I'm 27 years old and I literally started my brand a year ago, and even then I'm still like building and learning, and it's a growing process. And what I tell people is, when you stop learning and growing or wanting to expand, outside of what you're currently doing, that's when you become stagnant and complacent, and you never want to do that. So
I
that's
could not.
one
I love it. That was
takeaway
a sweet
point.
rant. That's totally getting clipped and getting sent to you. Don't worry. That was a sweet rant. But no, I mean, it's funny. I don't always go back to it, but object in motion stays in motion. Object at rest stays at rest. Right. Like if you
Yes.
continue to learn and expand, you're gonna find out what you love. Right. I hated my job and I spent a lot of time doing it, and then I realized like none of this makes me happy. What's the one thing in the world that I wake up, sleep, eat, breathe, and go to sleep? And it's sports. It's
And
100% sports.
your mental health has got so much better,
Yep.
I would assume, right? Because that's how I
Absolutely.
felt whenever I
I
wake
didn't
up.
hate my job. I didn't
I
hate
wake
10
up
hours of
and I
my
can
day
do
anymore,
this 24 hours in a row,
right?
and I'm still super happy, whereas, like, even just the 8 hours of sitting in that office doing plastic surgery and, like, my sales and whatever I was doing and my consulting, I was just like, I wasn't happy. I wasn't. And then with this, I'm like, "Oh my god, I feel so much more relieved." Like, I can wake up and literally do this every single day and see that what I'm doing is actually making an impact, aside from just providing the entertainment aspect, obviously,
That
which
part's
is a
fun
huge
though.
part of it.
That's even more fun in some
Yeah,
cases, right? I love doing that. And that's like this. I don't get paid to do this show. I just do it for fun.
it's
Starting
fun.
to
Yeah.
Yeah, we're having some sort of audience figure it out. I'm getting in front of people. I'm having really cool guests like yourself on. But go check out if you're listening, if you're on YouTube, wherever, go check out. I've had some really, really cool guests on recently, but it's just one of those things. I do this for fun. This is my creative outlet, right? And I love my job. I love this. I love my wife. Like it doesn't I mean, every day I'm happy. Am I happy every second of every day? No, but every single day I'm happy. And I think that's really important for people to understand because if you're not and you're 25, like that was I was like, so I hate this now. The only thing that's going to change is I'm going to make more money, but I have already known like my entire life, like as long as I have enough, I'm not like I don't need yachts and mansions and shit. Like I just need
Yeah.
enough to get like can I buy like a steak at dinner? Like that's all I need. Like if that then I'm cool. So like the money that it would have been nice, I'm sure, but it
Yeah.
wouldn't have done nearly enough for me to consider it happy. And I'm very grateful that I figured that out. I'm grateful that you figured that out too. And I mean, honestly, you've peaked though. You've come on this show. So you're pretty much at the highest point you'll ever get to. So hopefully
I'll be adding this to my media kit.
I was gonna say, yes, notch in
I
your
made
belt right
I've
there.
already told my editors I have room for you on that media
I
kit, don't
love
you
it, I love
worry.
it. So, I wanna go back to the decision. Ooh, like you and LeBron, you're like 1 and 1, right? So, I wanna go back to the decision a little bit, and I guess, hey, I a lot of people out there listening, a lot of people just in general know that they're not happy, but then they look at their bills, and they look at their mortgage, or they look at the fact that they wanna get married soon, and they realize, like, "If I just kinda let my income go, this is gonna be a huge problem," and then you brought up the social time, right? And like, if you want to start a side hustle, it's going to take up a lot of time. But like, I really love seeing my friends and family. I can't blame anyone. I love seeing my friends and family. How did you come to the conclusion? How did you come to the decision to finally say, you know what? None of that is worth it. I need to see what happens and just say, screw it. Let's do this. And how did you personally, how long did that decision make? And how did you personally come to that decision?
Literally, when I went home that day and I wrote everything down in my notepad, and I remember going upstairs and be like, "Mom and Dad, I gotta tell y'all something." They were just like,
Oh,
and I'm
no.
like, "No, no, no, wait, don't worry, I'm not pregnant." Like,
Oh,
so
goodness.
I
Yeah.
gave him a
I
I
didn't
gave
even
him a
think that.
scare.
Okay.
No, I gave him a scare, and I was just like, "No, like, I wanna do this is what I wanna do." And they were like, "Well, we
So,
fully
were
support
you
you."
were you doing this before? Were you kinda dabbling on
No,
this?
Michael,
Did you
I had no social media whatsoever aside from maybe I had my LinkedIn, obviously for business purposes,
Easy.
but yeah, and maybe a Snapchat a long time ago that I would just send, pictures with, like, funny filters to my girlfriends, like,
Those were fun.
yeah, I did
Remember the
yeah,
dog filter?
yeah, the
Remember
dog
that? Those
filter,
were the
yeah, that
days.
was the epic one, that's, like,
Those are
what
the
they're
days.
known for, so, that was about it, so whenever I decided to do this, I was like, "Crap, I need to do my research," right? And what was scary for me is that when I went on Google, and I'm very transparent about this, when I went on Google and I put gaming and esports, I was just like, "Are there any women or people that look like me in this space? Am I in way over my head? I'm confused." And so then that's when I realized I was like, "Well, let me just start with streaming. Let me build up my socials." And it was like a work in progress, right? And I usually tell people is just start somewhere. And as you are building your brand, you'll figure out what works and what doesn't work. For me, I did a rebrand literally within 2 months of when I initially launched my brand because I realized that who I was impacting was not just people in gaming and esports, but outside of gaming and esports at that point because I was doing a charity for breast cancer. And
Awesome.
then I realized that I was getting reached out to by NFL alumni. There's Astro Gaming, Sub Nation. Hey, we would like to feature you here. And I'm like, oh my God, like my brand is now like reaching people outside of just the entertainment of like gaming and esports and the young audience. Like I need to rebrand. And I just literally just as I started learning, I started building. And then I surrounded myself and have people in your corner that want to see you advance and succeed in the space, right? So like people like Alex, I have this amazing guy named Perrin, and him and we talk like almost every day. And I tell him like, hey, this is what's going on. And he's like, well, X, Y, and Z, like we talk about it. So definitely find people in your corner, whether that's your parents, a mentor, someone that is passionate about gaming, right? That even just having those people in your life really does help because this business, this industry is very cutthroat. Just like any entertainment media, sports industry, you know how it goes, is very cutthroat. And then when you are someone like myself who is a woman and who's young and comes from a different background, it brings even more pressure because you have to work 10 times harder than anybody else in the room, it feels like. And so for me, not having the social media, not having the backing of a huge org, huge agency, like everything that I have done, I've done it by myself. Like I am my own agent, right? So what I told people is when people ask me, so ChiKa, how did you start? I was like, I started somewhere and you'll figure it out as you go. For me, it was just streaming at first. And now here I am. I'm hosting events. I'm able to commentate. I do interviews. I do digital creation for other brands. I'm an influencer of sorts. I help people
No,
build
not
their
of
image.
sorts. Get out of here. Just
Okay, I'm
you
an
I
influencer.
personally can't stand the term, but because you are an influencer, I don't
I
wanna tell you
know. I
that. So
can't stand the term
I'm
either.
sorry. Yeah, I
And then,
apologize.
I help other players and other people who are wanting to come into the space who are just as lost, like how I was. Just start somewhere. What is it that you're passionate about? What does that mission look like to you? What are your values? What do you want your brand to represent? And who is your audience? What is your aim? So like those type of things is what I'm doing now, but at first I didn't know, right? But it's literally just starting somewhere. I mean,
I
even just learning social media as a whole, Michael, was like,
No
listen,
thanks.
confusing. Yeah.
Yeah, no
So,
thanks. Social media is, it's great, and it's also the worst all at the same time. So it's one of those things that it's your job essentially,
yeah.
right? It's part of a job, so
Yeah.
it's something that you need to do. So I want to add one thing to what you said about people
Yeah.
starting, right? Start whatever, like just first start somewhere, but start immediately. Just
Oh,
who
yeah.
cares? As you said, you could change. Like no one's gonna be like, I remember like 3 years ago when you changed your brand, so I don't like no one's
It's
gonna
so
do that.
silly. I mean,
For
even
some reason, we think
Coca-Cola
it.
even
Yeah.
Coca-Cola over the years has changed. If
Yeah,
you look
all the
at
brand
Nike, Nike
if you
has
don't
changed.
change, again,
Yeah,
object in motion stays in motion, object at rest stays at rest. If you're
exactly.
not
So
changing,
just
you're
start somewhere.
stagnant. So you have
Mhm.
to start somewhere, so just start. But one thing that really helped me out when starting to create content like this, and again, I have changed the way I create content over the last few years, right? The best information I got, I was listening to a Tim Ferriss podcast, can't remember who the guest was, but the guest said, "How many people are on planet Earth?" I can't remember the number that Tim gave. I think he was way off, but it doesn't matter. Okay, how many people live in America? I think that number is close to like 350 to 400 million. Perfect. How many people do you think like exactly what you think? I don't know, 50,000, right? If you take 400 million, bring it down to 50,000, that number's not very big. If you can motivate 50,000 people to do something, you're going to be extremely successful in whatever you do. So literally create content for yourself. Create content that you would say, I want to listen to that. I want to read that. I want to watch that, whatever that is.
Something that you're
That
proud of.
exactly. You have to create the content that you would like because there are 50,000 people somewhere out there that will like to the 99th percentile what you like. You just have to then get in front of them. Now that's kind of the more difficult part, but the creation part, just do what you want. It's more fun
Yeah,
that way
I tell
anyway.
people, "What is the kinda legacy that you hope to leave behind?" And then think about that, and then how you can incorporate that into your brand. So for me, for instance, it was, inspiring the younger generation or underrepresented communities to show them like, "Hey, there is room for you in this industry, and these are the different opportunities that you can have, whether you wanna go on the academia side. Lawyer? Great. You're no longer happy at that law firm? We need lawyers in the gaming and esports industry." You know what I mean? Like, showing people that there is opportunities, and it's really what you can create in this business, right? What you can come up with your brand and how you can impact so many other people in lives. Like when I started, like I said, I started with just streaming, and I didn't know that I would be impacting so many people and working with so many brands, but I knew that I didn't want to put myself in a bubble, and that's why I expanded. And I think that's very important for people to know that if you want to be a content creator in gaming and esports, it's very important that you try different avenues, right? Don't just stay stagnant with just streaming. See what else you can do to build that so you can bring that audience from, Instagram or YouTube and bring that audience over to your Twitch, for instance. So I always tell people just start somewhere, right? The more you think about it, there's going to be 10 million other people like streaming. And it's a very saturated space. So at some point, it's best that you just start like today. Like as you're listening to this, just start today.
Yep. Sign up for an account, start something, this microphone, I get compliments on this microphone all the time. I don't know what it is. It's like a $30, $40 microphone, maybe like 60 from Amazon. So it's really not that expensive. Streaming, to stream on Twitch, I'm pretty sure, stop me if I'm wrong, but it's free, right? Like you just need a
Yeah.
laptop camera. So there's very, very
Even then,
low
there's people that don't stream with their camera on. They just start without their camera and
chit
go from
chatting. It's
there.
called the radio, right?
Yeah.
Remember that thing? Terrestrial
What's a
radio? That thing's
radio?
back. It's coming back.
What's
Um,
that?
no, I think it's really important again, just see what happens. It's fun. Like I love doing this. I'm trying book multiple guests a week just to have conversations with people. And even to your point, as you're talking about streaming our esports and gaming, right? Isn't like the most popular channel or whatever on Twitch just chatting? Like it's just people
Just chatting.
just chatting, literally. And
Yeah.
like millions of people are watching those channels all the time. So it's just figuring it out what you like to do and just get it out there because you'll learn along the way what you should do more, what you should do less. It's really not that difficult. You learn as you go. And
Yeah.
so I'm kind of curious, you've seemed extremely calculated. And as you said, you did a lot of research when it came to starting branding, rebranding. Again, you said neuro at some point. To me, that means brain. So you're going to be like a brain surgeon or something. So very
Yeah.
clearly, you know what you're doing. You're kind of smart, to say the least, when it comes to a lot of this stuff. So I'm kind of curious, like, how do you, again, starting the content creation? That's great. How do you then get to the next level? Let's call it, where it's like, okay, now this is the specific brand I want to build, and you can say whatever the hell you want to say, but that doesn't mean anything, as you know. It's the actions that you take. So
Yeah.
how did you figure out exactly what you wanted that brand to be, and then were able to execute upon that mission, that vision, those values that you were looking for?
Yeah, so just with any research that you do, whether it's on the academic side or research about a brand, or let's say you want to join a company, treat it as like you joining a job, right? Or you want to join that company, so you do your research on the company, right? What kind of initiatives do they have? What kind of projects have they done? What do these projects look like? What are the brand integrations of those projects? So I looked at, okay, there's 45% of women or gamers that identify as women, right? Now, what are these women doing? Or in general, what is the population of the gaming community doing, right? They're streaming. Okay. And now these women, are they holding jobs in esports and gaming? Okay, great. That number goes significantly down to 22%. And then I started looking, okay, well, what about like Hispanics, Latinos, Black creators? And then that number goes even further down. And I was just like, huh, well, that's not okay. Huh. And so then I started realizing, okay, well, let me see what they're doing to build their brand, right? And a lot of them had like initiatives for their DEI initiatives, or they collaborated with other creators. So I was like, that kind of gave me an idea. But essentially, it's whenever I created my brand, I wanted to be treated as a legit person. Here's my brand, right? Because it's a very, very saturated space. And here's this girl who never had social media, who literally just built her Instagram profile 2 months ago,
Good for you.
trying to get like, which is a work in itself, trying to get these brand partnerships or these collaborations. So I was like, okay, I'm going to treat it as I would treat it when I was working in the plastic surgery industry. I would have all of my documentation there. I would have all of my statistics. I would have everything that I can bring to the table, how I could, basically increase brand awareness or bring a different demographic to the table. So like I knew that I checked a lot of these like check marks on people's lists whenever I would have these conversations, but it's about how you market yourself and who it is you're speaking to. And so for me, I just did my research, look at what everybody else was doing, whether it was women in the industry or bigger creators. And I kind of made it my own, because the most important part is sticking to what is true, what you believe. Because, for example, I used this example before, but Ninja, he's a very known creator, right? You know who Ninja is. I've seen people that try to emulate Ninja. They wear the headband, they have like the same style type
Cool
of like
hair.
logo, cool hair. And it's like, that works for him because that's him,
Hmm.
right? What by all means, if you want your hair to be pink, I love it. I'm
Rock
all
and roll.
about people with pink hair and funny colors and fun colors. But like, who are you and what can you bring to the table without copying anybody else or exactly copy paste? And I always tell people that an original is worth more than a copy. And I even told Alex this when her and I had a conversation. Original is worth more than a copy. So when you're doing your research, it's okay to look at the different ideas and like, maybe use that as a way to expand or inspiration, but bring you to the table because that's at the end of the day, all you have is you. And that's the people that you are the person that people are going to come and see on Twitch every night when you turn on your camera, right? It's not ninja, right? So that's what I normally tell people is just stay true to yourself, do your research and literally just start somewhere because that's what I did. And initially, I knew that I wanted to entertain people because gaming is entertaining, esports is entertaining. But like you need everybody that is on Twitch right now bring some type or form of entertainment. That's why they have viewers. Those viewers, like you said, those 50,000 people go and see them for that reason because they find that person entertaining. I may not find them entertaining, but they found their niche. They found their audience. And that is the important part is finding out who it is you can impact and how you can stay true to yourself and your brand while also, expanding on collaborating with other brands and other creators. I hope that answered the question. I
It
know it's
did. No, it did. And I have a really great follow-up question in my opinion. One thing that people and I speak to again, I actually spoke at my alma mater, Rutgers today to a class in sports marketing because
nice.
I really want to help people try and get jobs in this industry because I love it so much. And so one thing that people, again, going back to the creation process, right? That first podcast I did only had like 6 people listen
Oh,
to it,
dude, I
right?
go back to my stuff before and I'm like cringe.
So
Like,
like nobody really you can't start at 1,000. Again, you're not starting with this big
no,
organization. You're not starting with all these partnerships, yada yada yada. You started from the literal zero of
literal
I at
zero,
least
no
I
social
had an
media.
Instagram account. Like my friends knew who I was at that point, right? So I'm kind of curious in the beginning, especially, and hopefully, people listening will resonate with this question. You're gonna be super gung ho, and this all sounds great, and they're gonna do it, and then the first one's like whatever, only 3 people watch. The next one's gonna get 1,000, and then the next one gets 2 people to watch, and you're like, oh no, we're going backwards. Like, what's the problem here? How did you then get over that initial hump of only a few people seeing it, only a few people seeing it? Okay, do I have to change something? Like, no, sticking to your guns. Like, how did you work that initial level of oh God, what did I
Am I
do?
doing the right
What am
thing?
I doing? Why did I do
Yeah.
this?
I will, like I mentioned before, I left something very secure, right? I was in an industry that's thriving, right? Where I would show up, I would get I knew the number of patients that were coming in. I knew that I was going to get a paycheck and my bonus and my commissions, whatever. Like I knew that I was doing well in that industry to then come to something that's ever so changing, that is very flippy floppy, as I would say, you
Perfect
know?
terminology. Yes, I
Like,
love that.
it's ever so changing where, like, at some point, I might have 100, 200, 500 viewers, and then it drops down, and I'm like, "Ah," and at first, it was scary just to even put myself out there because, again, I didn't have social media, and I literally had these people telling me like, "Oh, hey, ChiKa, this is how you do it." Even my first stream, Michael, I had this really bad my first stream was a birthday stream on top of that, right?
Happy birthday.
Oh, thanks. It was a birthday stream, and my audio was bad, and people kept coming in and out of the stream and saying, "Hey, your audio is bad." And I'm like, "Crap, like I don't know what to do." But people stuck around, and I fixed it, and I learned from it. And I think that's the most important part is you learn from it. And don't get discouraged because everyone starts somewhere. Everybody's journey is different. My journey is obviously going to be different than a lot of our viewers because some of them have had social media for a very long time. So I legitimately started from zero. My first followers were like my mom and my dad. And even then, they had to create Instagram accounts because they didn't have Instagram
Love
accounts.
it.
You know what I mean? So, like, my first followers were my closest friends or family members. And then from there, people saw the impact I was making or they liked my content, and my content varied at first. I didn't really know what I wanted to put out there. And now, yes, I'm providing the entertainment, but now I'm also in academia, and people like to see that side of how they can get integrated into esports and gaming through academia and learning skills. And now I have a better understanding, but at first it was so scary because I had no idea what I was doing. So if
Yes.
you have social media, then you're at least a step ahead from me where I was when I first started a year ago because I had no idea what I was doing. But I think it's just getting over that initial fear and knowing that no one else is going to open that door for you and you have to do it yourself. It's very seldom where you have someone that comes up to you and go, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you." Because at the end of the day, no one cares. And that's the reality of it. And I hate to say it that way, but no one cares. And so you have to be the one to take that step and build something for yourself if you want to do well, even in any aspect of life, right? So I think that's basically how I started, where I knew I was like, well, no one's gonna care whether or not I start today, don't do well. Like I have to start somewhere and eventually I'll have good people in my corner that I can go to. But right now it's just me and what I want to build this brand. And I'm just gonna start somewhere. And if it fails, then I can at least say I tried and I found different ways in which it did not work, and then I can try again.
That is the key, right? You
It
have to
sounds very
understand.
poetic.
Yeah, it did. I was also gonna say, if you haven't, like, trademarked Start Somewhere, I really think you should. Just by the way.
Yeah.
Put, like, the trademark and the patent pending in on that guy, because you say it every once in a while. I don't know if you noticed, but,
No, I
um
did not.
no,
Start
I'm
somewhere.
kidding. I'm kidding. You see, it works. You're good. You're good. But no, and I think it's really important for people to understand that because, right, like the first few podcasts I did sucked. So, like they were bad too, right? Like not only did people not listen, I also had no idea what I was doing. But over time, I've gotten better. I've
But you
figured
went
out.
back and looked at those, right? And you kind of figured out what
Whoa.
worked and didn't work, right?
Yeah. Well, I over time, like I haven't listened to those first ones in a while because I really don't want to, because again, they were bad. Like, why am I going to waste an hour of my
Yeah.
time to see how terrible I was? But over time, I would listen, I would understand, I would ask guests, I would always ask for feedback at the end of this. I can guarantee you it's not going to be live, but I'm going to ask for some feedback. So watch out. But hope you're taking notes. But no, in sincerity, like ask the audience what they like, what they don't like. Ask your friends that listen what they like and don't like, and just try
Exactly.
and get an understanding. And then I love having people like you on, or journalists, or people that are constantly in front of a camera, because they always give the best feedback because they're doing it too, right? It's not just some
Yep.
guy in like business intelligence somewhere at some company. He's like, I don't know, you were great. Thanks, man. Everyone likes a pat in the back every once in a while, but good feedback's always helpful, and really just understanding and figuring out questions and having certain things lined up and just having enough conversations for me
Yeah.
that it
Like I
starts
said,
to
I
get.
look back at my old stuff and I'm just like, ew, why did I
Yikes.
even choose that background for that graphic? Or why did I have even my logo? When I first started, my logo, like even looking at it now, I'm like, cringe. Okay. I was like, why did I pick this logo? And it was because I thought it resonated with the gaming community. And now that I have expanded, I'm like, okay, now I feel so much better about my current logo and branding. But even then, like I can go back and I have saved some of these I've archived on
Love it.
Instagram, but I go back to them and I go whenever I feel like that moment where I'm like, "Ah, am I doing enough?" Like, those moments, because we all go through those moments where it's like maybe you don't feel like you're doing enough in the space or you're not growing fast enough. And it's moments where like when I, for example, when I work on my media kit or when I go back to my first videos, my first interviews, those first set of questions when I would ask in an interview or when I'm hosting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've come a long way. I've come a long way, and don't be so hard on yourself. And I think, and when you're in front of the camera all the time doing content creation and everyone's putting out content and it's literally like a race for who does it first and who's innovative first and who gets the partnership, it's a lot of pressure, and taking those moments to kind of reflect back on the work that you've done and how you've improved is very important. And I do that every week. Towards the end of the week, I look at what I have put out or content or, networking, whatever. And I go back to how I could have improved or what can I do to make it better? If a certain video didn't perform well, what can I do to make it better? Was it the graphic? Was it that I posted it at the wrong time? Was it that I didn't market it well enough? So it's always taking those moments to not just obviously don't focus so much on the negative, but take those moments to kind of give yourself a pat on the back. And I wish more creators would do that, because I see the conversations on Twitter. I see the conversations on these platforms that I'm on where creators feel so discouraged because they're not seeing those numbers or they're not getting the results fast enough or they're not getting the audience attention that they would have hoped for. And it's give yourself credit for the things that you are doing right. Don't focus so much on the negative and just build on it.
Love it. I'm always positive. I always try
Yeah.
and be positive. There's no reason in being negative to get you nowhere, right? Like all
Yeah.
it does is take up time and get you nowhere. So try and be positive as much as you can, because it's helped me. It seems like it helps you. And as you said, you can be positive about the things you need to do better, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like, hey, like if I did this better, man, this could have been a lot. Like let's try it next time. Like that's awesome.
Exactly.
It's got a little positive spin to it. So so a couple things I want to talk about, right? There's those brand partnerships that you brought up. So that's very interesting to me. There's also the um the expansion of yourself and what you do right now, host, instructor, you're talking about being in academia, it's your brand ambassador, like you're all over the place now in a good way. How again, I'm very positive that these were cold, calculated steps on your part. Which ones came first, and why did you start to, I guess, kind of, walk your way out into not just, hey, I'm not just gaming and esports and streaming. Like, I do a lot of different things. I mean, you did a painting stream the other night, didn't you? Right? Like, that's awesome. I love Bob Ross. Don't get me wrong, but like, how did you start to see like, okay, these are some of the things I need to do, and then how did you decide where to go next?
So I started mainly working with smaller brands, so to speak, or the collegiate sector. I see a big push for collegiate esports now, and
Yes.
I'm like smiling now because it's like, yeah, I saw that like last year, right? I saw the interest in like the capabilities of what comes in collegiate esports. So I started, hey, do you guys need someone to do a hosting or an interview? Or hey, I'm working with this other brand. Maybe I can introduce you guys. All about networking and introducing
Hmm.
people. I always do a very good job at connecting people in the space, and I think that's very important. Is to help each other out. We're all in here to obviously make the space a better space. And the reason why I say that is because unlike traditional sports, esports is still being built upon. There's no direct pipeline, right? As far as like what does the college esports program look like? Do you get credits for, attending your esport classes in high school? And does that transfer on to collegiate? Or how do you get scouted? There's pipelines being built, but everything is still so very fresh and new. So I knew that I wanted to start somewhere that was familiar to me, which was academia. So I started with, building on establishing those connections in the collegiate esports place. And from there, people would have introduced me to other brands like, "Oh, hey, we know this person who, they would love to chat with you." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, I would love to set up a meeting with them." Or just even the content that I've been posting will attract that attention from people, and we'll start a communication. We'll start a conversation somewhere. And, if they like what I have to say, we'll collaborate. If not, then hey, I have someone who might fit what you're looking for and go from there. And it's just building relationships. I think building networking relationships and business relationships is very important in this space. As big as the esports scene looks like, or gaming esports, it's still so very small at the same time. Um, from what I know, I'm the only Greden Camacho in this space. Correct me if I'm wrong, but like the only official chica in this space. So it's one of those things where, make sure you leave a good impression, and um, that you are navigating in the space correctly, because it's still such a small space, and those opportunities that you are having now might trickle onto having more partnerships or brand integrations later on. But essentially I started with academia, which is something that's familiar to me because I spent all of my life pretty much in school.
I was gonna say, yeah, you spent a lot of time there trying to become a
Yeah,
doctor.
and just
So,
building from there. I didn't realize my capability until I had those initial opportunities, and I realized I'm like, "Huh, Brendan, why are you doubting yourself? You bring so much more to the table. You're much more than the person in front of the camera that can entertain, right?" So that's kind of where I'm at. And now I'm like teaching, for example, nationally with Esports Scholar, which is Boston based, but I've been teaching classes along with some other colleagues in the East Coast, West Coast. We have people in the Midwest area taking these classes, and I've actually been teaching them about brand integration or how to build their brand. What does that look like? So it's
I
it's been
love
a
that.
it's been a fun experience.
I
Yeah.
wanna be a part-time professor. Like, that's one of my goals I read every
It's
morning
fun.
because I think I have the personality for it.
Yes.
I'm hilarious, first off. Let's start with that. But no, I think it would just be kind of fun, just, like, mess around with 20-year-olds. Just be like, "Don't be dumb. Like, what are you
Oh,
fucking doing? Like, it can't be that hard. Like, come on, guys." So, no, I think it would be a lot of fun. That's always something that I wanna do. Just, like, 2 classes a week, like, the Tuesday, Thursday night class starts at, like, 8, supposed to go to 11. We kinda get out at, like,
you leave them out
9:45.
early.
Yeah, I wanna go
You're
home,
the
I wanna
cool
go to sleep.
professor, you let them out early.
Exactly. We'll have the Thursday night football game on in the background, so,
There you
I'll
go.
be talking about sports betting because that's what I do, so, maybe we can have some lessons there, but, no, I think, it's always something I wanted to do. It sounds like you're doing a pretty darn good job at it as well, and again, just finding new ways to expand your is there anything on the horizon? Is there anything you're looking at? Or as you said, you were kind of a year ahead on college esports. Is there anything maybe don't lay all your cards down, but is there anything you're kinda starting to
You know,
navigate the waters in a little bit?
to be honest, like, I wanna continue teaching. I wanna continue doing academia, whether that's teaching K through 12 or even going and doing project management with different organizations to build that infrastructure for maybe after school programs, or and I've done some of that with like Futures First Gaming, and also Esports Scholar, but I'd like to do more of it through my brand and kind of show it's I guess what inspires me is that in these conversations whenever I'm teaching, we're on Discord and we allow the students to chat and just kind of, if at any point you have questions or have comments, by all means, like type it in the chat. I'll get to it at some point in the lecture, or, go ahead and interrupt me. Like, I'm here for you guys. Like, I wish I had this opportunity, right? I wish I had someone at that age, right? At y'all's age telling me the things that I'm telling you guys. And I had one girl specifically say, wow, so like I didn't know like girls can game professionally or like have room in media or entertainment or create content. Here there's groups, but it's mainly like for the boys and like those kind of conversations. Like it makes me realize that I'm at least impacting someone, and that's what makes me happy to know that I'm at least touching one person in that lecture. I'm touching their life and they know that there's room for them in this industry. And so for me, I would like to continue doing more academia. I love hosting events. I love getting in front of the camera, even just doing this and podcasts and talking to people, sharing my story and inspiring others. That's the big part of my brand, but also showing people that you can do anything through the love for games, love for gaming and sports. I said this example to Alex before in many other podcasts, but it's like when you go to an NFL game or a baseball game, you are surrounded by so many people. You don't know where they come from. You don't know their background. You don't know anything about them, right? Unless you went with your friends and they take up the whole like section. But you don't know anything about them. But what you do know is that they have a love and a passion for that team in that game. And that's essentially what my platform is kind of built upon, is that it doesn't matter what background you come from. It doesn't matter if you have an education or background or not, or if you had to start over in your 20s like I did. You know what I mean? There
Get to.
is room for you. True.
You got to start over in your 20s.
Had to start over in my 20s, then there is room for you in this industry. And I want to inspire people to follow their passions and not be so afraid of failure. And I think that's what stops a lot of us whenever we are pursuing a new venture, is that the fear of failure, right? But you just have to
Mhm.
start somewhere. And like I said, the world
You did it again.
I did it
I'm
again. I think
telling
I
you,
might have to
you
you gotta
have
start
to do something
somewhere.
about it at this point. I apologize for breaking your
No, you're
concentration on that
good.
one.
But basically, yeah, like I would hope to do more academic because I feel like that's where I see a lot of my impact too. I mean, obviously, like the funny content entertainment that comes along the way too. But I would essentially love to be able to do it on a bigger platform. I think I mentioned to you, like I'm not under an agency or under an organization. I do everything myself. So I wear many hats in the space. So whenever you ask me like how do I introduce you, I'm like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Go with these.
Multimedia personality, host, and digital creator.
Because I know I'm an instructor,
Mhm.
I'm an inspirational speaker, so to speak. I do all sorts of stuff, and I just want to be able to continue expanding on that. I don't like limiting myself. So I'm
Mhm.
always open for new opportunities, but academia is something that I've seen the most impact in, and being able to do it at the K through 12 level and collegiate level is it's amazing.
I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Along.
And
I'll bring you along with me.
yeah, let me know. I'm here. I'm right on the other side of the screen, so
Yeah.
don't worry. I'm here. I'm here to hang out. So I think one thing that I really that I love about sports, and I think a lot of people love about sports, right? It's kind of a built-in community. You made the analogy, right? You go to a football game, especially if it's the home team, and you're a fan of that home team. You guys are all friends. Like
Yeah.
that's easy.
Y'all
Like
are
we're all
homies.
friends. Like you go to baseball practice, like you become friends with those people because you are forced, you get the
Yeah.
opportunity to be forced to hang out with those people for a long time, right? So it's just one of those things where there's a built-in community. It sounds like you're really taking that to the next level because now it's on the internet. Now it's in your Discord. Now it's in your Twitch chat, which we'll get to in a little bit. Now it's in your classes, right? And I think that's really important because people then can feel that sense of community because we're all social creatures. Like I don't care how introverted, extroverted you are, we are social creatures. That is
Yeah.
kind of how it works. So whether you like to be out there a lot like me and you, or you don't, you're still looking for friends. Like I find it hard to believe you're not looking for any friends. So I think that part is very important to building your brand on. And it seems like you're doing a great job at it. Just a couple more questions here that I'm curious about. So
Yeah.
you spoke about that little girl. For some reason, she didn't see anybody like her, right, on the internet, on TV. So she didn't think that something like this was possible. Women in gaming has been a huge movement over the last couple years, right? Especially with more and more female creators joining the space. How do you tackle this problem, which is much, much, much bigger than you, much, much, much bigger than just any single female in the space, but collectively, it's something that can be tackled. How do you go about tackling it? As you said, just trying to affect one person at a minimum every day.
Yeah. I think it all starts with having conversations, but now we're also at the point where conversation is no longer enough and it's more the actions that take place. And so whenever a prime example is whenever I am speaking to a brand or an organization, I want to make sure that when I collaborate with them, that it aligns with my missions and values, because if it doesn't, then it goes against everything that I believe in and everything that my community stands for, and also what my audience comes to see every single day when they go on my Instagram, my Twitter, my Twitch. I speak about these topics very heavily, and I think it's about the action. I know there has been instances where at the corporate level we see that it's not happening, where women aren't treated fairly, and when you look at women of color, whether they're in the LGBTQ plus community too, like we just don't get treated with the same respect. And so that's happened at the corporate level, and it's also happening at the player base level. And so right now, it's really about changing the dynamic and how people think. A very good example that I have is I will stop my Twitch sometimes. I will be in the middle of a gameplay and I will stop playing to address a certain comment in my chat. And I know this sounds crazy because like, hello, we're in the middle of playing, but I feel like the conversations need to be heard. And so I had a gentleman, for instance, who said that, oh, you're lucky you're in this position because you are a woman. And
I don't think he
basically,
knows much about society, to be
and
totally
then he
honest
was
with you.
saying that, what the reason why I have followers or my brand has done well in such a short period of time is because I am a woman. And so I literally stopped my gameplay. We were playing Call of Duty and I said, hey guys, I'm going to hide in this bush, cover me. And they're like, ChiKa, the
Love it.
gas is coming. The gas is coming. I was like, I don't care. I need to address this
There'll be
because
another
yeah,
game.
if
Don't
I
worry.
don't address it, then it's just going to continue happening. And I know there's people out here listening and there's young people listening, and they need to understand that it's not about luck, because I sit in this chair every single day and I go out and network also to build my brand. There's so much blood, sweat, and tears that goes into my content, and time that I put into it, money that I put into it, right? And I want to make people know that it's not about luck, it's about working hard. And if you work towards those goals, then you can be successful, right? And so I had a conversation with him. I looked into the camera just like this. I looked into the camera and I said, listen, when you say that women are lucky to be in the space, or you only mention my gender, you're basically saying that my role and my success in life, it's only because I am a woman. And then you're disregarding everything else that I have put into my brand, everything else that I have put into the projects that I put up for you guys, the giveaways, the contests, the type of media entertainment that I put out for you guys every single day. So no, it's not about me being a woman. It's about me working hard and knowing what I want. And it shouldn't be about my gender. And that stopped the conversation very quickly because I got very serious. But it's about having these conversations and also having the action behind it. And there's times where I've broken it down to people and they're like, oh, ChiKa, how is it being in this industry? And it's like, well, guys, it's hard. It's hard, we know it's hard, but it's even harder when you're a woman because you don't get the same amount of respect, right? And then you don't get the same opportunities, but you have to work towards those. Oh, there goes my dog. So Zoe, so yeah, it's one of those things where I find myself having that conversation a lot and making sure that whatever I put out there, whether it's me speaking to someone on Twitch or a specific content, that it reflects, yes, entertainment, but that it also speaks to what I believe my brand represents.
I think that's fantastic. One thing that I believe is luck does not exist. I don't believe in luck. I believe in hard work. And people always
Hard
say
work.
right place, right time. Well, like, why were you there? Probably because you're working hard, right? You can't get you can get more lucky out there networking, talking to people, and creating more content than you can sitting on your couch.
Yeah.
Agree or disagree?
Yeah.
Exactly. Like so I don't believe in luck. I believe in creating your own luck, and I don't believe in coincidences. Again, I believe in being in the right place at the right time for the right reasons. And that is what's going to get you there, because if you put more hard work into something, you're going to be surprised that there's more and more coincidences happening,
Yeah.
which means they're not a coincidence. It means you're working harder and you're doing the right thing. So
And don't get
I'm
me wrong, we've come a long way in the industry where we see women, for example, taking on roles. Like, for instance, we just now saw the first Black woman in NFL as a referee, right?
love
And
it.
when I looked at these comments, and I even shared it with Alex, when I looked at these comments, I was like, wow, these comments are basically saying because she's a woman, she,
She can't
and
throw a
because she's
flag. Like,
and because she's Black, she might not know the sport or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, dude, she's worked hard to get to where she's at. Can we honor that? Can we respect
yes.
her aside from just like talking about her gender? And I looked at the comments, a majority of them just honed in on the fact that she was a woman. And will she make the right plays? Will she make the right calls? And it's
It,
just it's
it
very
literally,
sad.
it makes no sense to me. Like, why, like, specifically on this topic, like, why would a woman not be able to, like, make the call? Like, her eyes work, right? Like, I don't think it has anything to do with her gender. Like, can she see what's happening?
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't
Okay.
no
Who cares?
clue.
It makes no sense to me. I mean, again, I say that as, a white upper middle class guy. Like, I mean, shit, man. What do I get? Yeah,
You
I'm
know
doing
what?
just fine.
It's
But
people like you that we need to also in this space, and I'm thankful that you're open about it and you're taking that action and providing a platform for people to talk and discuss these topics because I think it is important. I was at the airport. I went to Philadelphia and Delaware for a trip
worst
to
place on planet Earth, Philadelphia.
worst,
Absolute worst place on
honestly,
planet Earth.
worst airport in my life.
Worse. Oh no, you haven't been to Newark then. No, never
Um,
mind.
so
Cool.
I was sitting down. I was sitting down, and it's, as you know, National Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month. And I was sitting down, I was drinking my coffee, and I had this gentleman sitting next to me, and we're both watching the news. And luckily, thank God I had my mask because I was making faces the entire time. Because on the news channel, they were saying, oh, that Latino and Hispanic women in media go so underrepresented. And the guy next to me was like, wow, can you believe this? And I'm sitting there like,
Do your eyes work? Do your eyes work,
so, like,
sir?
at
Like,
some point, I couldn't keep my mouth shut. At some point, I, like, look over and I was like, "Sir, excuse me, if you don't mind me asking, where are you from?" And he told me somewhere. I obviously, it's planet Earth, but I looked at him and I was like, "Oh, so you're from planet Earth?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was
love
like,
it.
"Oh, okay. It's just you just seem so surprised that, Black people and brown people and women go so underrepresented in media and sports." And he's like, and I was like, "No, no, no, it's okay. I'm a little shooketh that you're shooketh, that you don't grasp that." And it's honestly, some people aren't aware. Some people aren't aware. And so then they question when they have someone like me walk into the room and I lay down the facts. You know what I mean? I go into a room sometimes and I have to, like, let's say I'll pitch something, I'll tell somebody, yeah, I love video games. They're like, oh, can you name the artist of da da da? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, but like it becomes a quiz. It
Yeah.
becomes a quiz, or oh, I love football. Oh, can you name this football player on this team? And da da da. And I'm like, do y'all do this with the guys?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm like, are we doing a quiz right now? And it's never like, oh, cool. Like, what are your favorite games or X, Y, and Z? What do you do on your platform? It becomes a quiz sometimes. So I just thought that was so funny at the airport that there's some people that are literally shocked and do not see it sometimes, or I don't know, maybe he was legitimately dumb. I don't know. But like he genuinely did not understand that we go so underrepresented in media and in sports and entertainment. And that we don't always have like the lead role, so to speak. And so sometimes it does take just calling someone out on it. But now I want to see action. And like I said, we've come a long way. We see organizations now making Valorant, all women Valorant teams, or giving women the opportunity to become part of, I don't know, the back end of like projects and to be able to build projects from the ground up. And that's all fantastic and fine. But what I'm also seeing is that we are also making it to where women have their own thing and men have their own thing. And if we do truly want to make it an inclusive space where there's diversity, there's that equity, the representation, then we should start really looking outside of just like, oh, women can have their own thing, men can have their own thing, right? Especially in gaming and esports, where I mean, it's literally there's no like barrier as far as like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
no, I mean, like, diversity is extremely important,
yeah,
and all the facts point to the more diverse you can have a group of people, the better ideas they come up with because they're coming
and
from different
skills to the
experiences,
table.
different skills. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's again factual. How corporations that, make billions and billions of dollars a year know this information and then don't utilize it is just mind blowing to me, because all they care about is making more money. So like, I just don't
Yeah.
get it. Like, they're
And
corrupt.
and I
Let
I
them be
I have these
better at being
conversations,
corrupt.
and I think I even told you that, like, I know when I walk into meetings sometimes, I check that little checklist for people
Hmm.
for businesses, you know? I'm a young woman, I can articulate myself very well, I have academic background. I also represent a minority group, I have an understanding of the gaming and esports industry. There's a lot of things that I bring to the table, but I literally emphasize and talk to these brands and I go, "How many what is the percentage of women in your industry? Have you what roles do they have? Have you invested in women creators? If so, how many and what do they look like? What is their background?" Like those are questions that I ask when I have these conversations because if I work with brands that do not align with mine, then I'm like a phony essentially. And in this world of social media and the world that we live in now, people you can do 99 great amazing things, right? But you make one mistake and people are going to remember you for that one mistake, and that's just the reality of it. And so I just want to make sure that yes, everything that I do is calculated, right, but I also do things that come from the heart and what feels right. And that's mainly what I consult with my mentors and things like that, but that's mainly how I navigate in this space is do what you think is right and always think about the legacy that you want to leave behind.
So with that, I don't really know the best way to ask this question, but as you said,
For
you check those boxes, right? So this is, we're all dealt a card, hand of cards, right? How do you make sure you're playing those cards correctly? And again, going back to being calculated, right? How are you making sure you're playing those cards when you know is a good time to play it and when is not a good time to play it? Does that make sense?
kind of.
So like, how do you reach out to brands and say like, hey, these are the boxes I checked. Let me come in and talk to you. Or do you wait
Oh,
till you
okay, I
get
see.
there and you're like, oh, by the way, I already checked
Oh,
all these
no.
boxes, so let's move on. Like, how
Well,
how do you
let's
kind
be
of
honest,
play
a
that?
lot of the brands do their research, right?
Yeah, that's true.
My stuff is all public. You can see it out there. You type in Greden Camacho or official Chica Gaming and it pops up on Google. So a lot of brands do the research, but I'm also very particular as far as how I navigate and connect with them. So I obviously send like an email and I also include media kits are very important. I also include references and if they need anything additional, I will include a reel. I would include my past work. But majority of what has helped me in the space is when I work with the brand, it's kind of like that word of mouth. Oh, hey, we worked with this person and she does a really great job. And that's why you have to navigate really well and do your 110% for every single project because people will remember that and they will throw your name into the conversation. And so at any point, I'll have an email and they're like, "Hey, we heard that you're doing this with Esports Scholar and your first session went really great. Would you be interested in holding a session here for X, Y, and Z? We have a lot of kids from underrepresented communities and we really think that they would look up to you." And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And it's because they hear from a past project. So for me, because I don't have someone seeking out the talent for me and just bringing it to the table or making those deals for me, it's mainly myself having these conversations with these brands and the agents and the organizations. Whereas, some people would already have that representation. So yes, a lot of them know my background, but I also do my research. So if I before I send that email out, I look at what it is they're needing or what it is I'm noticing about their brand or maybe the people that they have in place. And a lot of these places are looking to do DEI initiatives. So I go, "Hey, this is what I can bring to the table. I speak Spanish." You know what I mean? Like
Hey,
just even little things like that. But yeah, like essentially I basically come prepared. Be prepared to pitch, be prepared to a lot of people are trying to get into this industry. So be prepared to pitch, have your media kit, have a reel, have those references that you can count on so you can say, "Hey, I really need you to connect with these people really quick and kind of show them and talk about my past work." That's very important. So just basically having good people in your corner and in your circle and making those genuine relationships and business relationships, not just transactional.
yes, real relationships are always going to go significantly further. Greta, this is amazing. We're about out an hour. I gotta let you go. I gotta go eat dinner. Like, I have
Ooh,
so many
what's for
more
dinner?
questions. Yeah, right. I have more questions. Maybe we'll do a part two coming up. Because I
I
think
love a
some of
part
these,
2.
yeah, I think that would be
Yeah.
pretty fun. We'll schedule out a part two because this was a lot of fun. But this is I really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story in the again. This is business and sports, business and esports, whatever the hell you want to call it at this point. But I think it's really important for people to understand where you come from, where a lot of different people come from and how they start. And again, your story really grabbed me. And then just again, how you've been able to build yourself over just a short period of time and build your brand, I think is very important. Where can, in case people want to follow you or check out that brand that you're talking so highly of, where can they find it?
So you can go on Google and you can put official ChiKa Gaming and it should pop up all of my socials. Or if you want to go on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, the whole social media, essentially, you can find me on at I'm Official ChiKa.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. This has been an absolute pleasure
Oh, Michael,
to
and
you.
thank you for having me.
Please. The pleasure is all mine. This is my favorite thing I get to do. So you just let me have fun for an hour. So pretty easy. You gave me some of your time. It's the only thing we don't get more of. So I appreciate you for that as well and everyone listening. But other than that, hope everyone has a great day.
Yes, I hope everyone has a great day and has learned something today.
Yes, learn something new
Start
every day. I
somewhere.
love it. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.